Good morning. It's a bit chilly out there. Well, it is for me. I don't know how you're feeling it, but as a soft Brit, we don't really get too many cold days. And on the cold day, I've put a dress on. So I'm thinking, my goodness, what was I thinking? Anyway, good morning to you all, and God bless you this day. So I just want to say to whoever's here first time, you're very welcome. And to those online, you're welcome to watch and enjoy and join in. And if it is your first time here, please see the Connect team member at the back at the Connect table. If you are new here, see them so we can bless you. And to those online, press the like button so we can get to know you better. If you're here with your children, we have Faith Kids teaching experience downstairs. Otherwise, you're welcome to stay up here with us. We are here if you're in any need of our assistance in any way. Please contact us at faithchurchvt@gmail.com or call 802-823-7828. Leave your name and number and we'll get back to you. If you would like to give to our Faith Church ministry, we encourage you to use our online giving option or go to our website, faithchurchvt.com, via the Church Centre app or text to give. Otherwise, there are baskets dotted around this place, which we gratefully receive. Men's groups and ladies' Bible plan group are on a Wednesday night at 6:30 in different locations within the church. All are welcome. Also, Thursday nights at 6:30 is prayer night, where we seek God for our church, community, and ourselves. There is to be a Faith Kids trip to Dave and Buster's next Wednesday. That's the 21st of February. And that's from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. There's a sign-up list on the Connect table at the back. And there will also be a short meeting for interested families after this service. Easter is not too far away, and there will also be an annual Easter egg hunt on the weekend of the 30th and 31st, Saturday and Sunday. So we're asking for donations of pre-filled eggs with candy, not toys, or empty plastic eggs with small candies of any kind. So thank you for listening. Pastor Jason.
All right. How's everybody doing this morning? It's a little warm in here, I think. I'm hot. I was enjoying outside. It's sunny outside. There was barely a breeze. It was a perfect Vermont February day, in my opinion, right? Such a great day. Thank y'all for being here this morning and making us a part of your Sunday morning. I know you could be anywhere doing anything, but yet the fact that you choose to be here, I really appreciate. I'm so grateful that you join us each and every single week, whether you're in person or you're online with us today. We've been going through a series called Relationship Goals, and we're going through the book of Ruth. Everybody been enjoying this so far? Okay? Yeah. Some of you, all right, and some of you are okay. All right, it's gonna get even better today. All right, I'm so excited to be able to dive into this next part. So last week we talked about we were in chapter 2 rather, and we talked about Boaz and we talked about Ruth. And we talked about godly traits that each of them carried. How Boaz was a man who put God first in his life and in his business. And that when he met Ruth, he honored her, he protected her, he provided for her, he even prayed for her. And in Ruth, we saw that as ladies, what should be striven for is faithfulness to God, loyalty to family, hard work ethic, and strong morals. And so this week, we're going to get into part 3 in relationship goals and how we are to date and how we are to progress in a relationship in a way that honors God and honors each other. So we're going to get there, but before we do, as always, we're going to have our break this morning. And as we're doing that, we've got a question for you as we're kicking things off. So as we hit our break, if you hadn't had a chance to, feel free to grab a coffee, feel free to grab a hot chocolate, feel free to get up and talk to somebody that you haven't met yet this morning. As you do that, ask and answer this question of one another, in person and online. When you date, or maybe it's been a long time since you dated, maybe when you dated a long, long time ago, what was one thing you did to get to know somebody? What was your go-to thing? Would you go somewhere? Did you have a line that you used? How did you get to know somebody when you were dating? All right, or if you're dating now, what do you do? All right, so use that as a conversation starter. We'll be back here in about 5 minutes, and we got a fun song to listen to as we do that. So feel free to get and mingle, grab your coffee, and talk this morning as we get going. All right. A little 90s dance music for you. What is Love? One of the great songs of the 90s if you're a 90s fan. So let's get into it this morning. What's some stories you got from when you dated, or if you're dating now? What do you do to get to know somebody? And we got Mr. Chris who's going to walk on the mic. So who's willing to divulge their secrets this morning? Dave, perfect. Thank you. Press the little, there you go. Nope. There we go.
I've been dated since 2000.
There you go. Now it works.
Now. So it's been since 2000, and in 2000 I was 18, and I had a lot of different ideas than I had now. So the fun that I would take Anna out to would be like finding old TVs and throwing them off a cliff.
Oh, nice.
Also mini golf.
One of those is slightly more normal than the other, all right? Up behind you, Chris.
Sorry.
The first time my husband and I went out on a date, it was to eat food. And he wanted to see if I was somebody that would have, a small salad that he paid $25 for, or if I would be a good eater. Well, we found out we both like to eat, and we had that in common.
Nice. Anybody else? When you dated, there you go, all right.
So Mike and I started dating very young, junior high school actually, and I spent a lot of time on the back of a motorcycle. I did a lot of crazy things that I never did before in my whole life. But the beauty of being together so young is that we were friends before anything else. So
Nice. Awesome. All right, behind you, Chris.
Sorry.
So the last guy that I dated, we would play card games together. And that was our way of like spending time together and talking, but still being competitive and playing games.
Nice. All right, here we go, Rick up front.
At our first date, my wife and I went out on, I went to take her to teach her how to shoot pool.
There you go.
And we got together and learned each other a lot about that.
Nice. Yeah, go out and shoot a few rounds of pool. That's not bad. Anybody else? That's great. Here we go. A couple over here.
Good morning. Our first date, Brian at the time was a merchant marine, and he used to go away, and he only had one night, and he called me and said, I would love to take you out to dinner. And I said, well, at the time I was a new teacher, and I said, I have lesson plans, I have a lot to do, and plus I have a new roommate, and I don't really want to leave her alone. And he said, well, you have to eat. He says, and I will absolutely love to take your roommate out as well. So he had a double date on our first date, and and then it's history from there.
That's perfect. If one doesn't work out, you got the other one right there. It's a great plan.
Well, when Phil and I met, I was a missionary, so I was only in the country for 2 weeks. So we met, and he decided to take me out on a date, which was great. But then our whole relationship, our dates for the most part were Skype dates. So we would talk for hours on Skype, which it's an older form of video communication, but that's what we would do forever. And so we had about a year of that, and then were engaged for a year, and that included Skyping through that year. But I mean, probably the only amount of time we were together, like in person, was maybe 4 months out of 2 years before we got married. So,
Wow. So far, so good.
For myself, I was in the military, and Catherine was in Gibraltar. So I was living out of a suitcase. So I first met Catherine, I was power dressing. I had a pair of Brutus jeans that had been pressed by the Chinese laundry on the ship. I had a pair of desert boots and a yellow Fred Perry t-shirt and an oxblood leather jacket. So when I met Catherine, I was power dressing. That was the best I could do. So that's obviously impressed her, because 40-odd years later, we're still married.
How you dress makes a difference. That's a fact. Anybody else? There we go.
I'll say something. So I've been with my husband for almost 17 years. We've been dating since I was a junior in high school. So I wouldn't even really know how to date in today's world if I ever had to. But back then we went for a ride around town in the car and just talked and sang the music and learned what each other was kind of into for music genre. We also used to go fishing a lot,
Nice.
four-wheeler riding, and he taught me how to shoot a gun.
Awesome. There you go. That sounds like a great weekend. That's perfect, right? Anybody else is awesome. That one more. Scott's got one over here. Sorry. Up here, Chris.
So when my wife and I first met, childhood friends of ours got us together. And while we were there, I asked her if she liked waterfalls.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that she loved them. So the next day we took our kids, her kids, my kids, went up to the Glen in Adams, had a nice picnic, went for a walk in the woods. It wasn't the waterfall I wanted to take them to, but it was a smaller one, which was all right. They tried to throw me in. I just ruined it by walking into the water. And I said, let's see who can get me out. And April's the one that got me out. So,
Nice.
we've been together for going on 24 years. So.
Nice. Very cool. Outstanding. Anybody else? Those are all great. Fantastic. Awesome. I think I've told some of y'all a few stories of how Jen and I got together, but if you don't know, I'll give a brief summation here. We met in church, and that church had a group of about 12 young adults that were gathered together. We hung out together, not only at church, but like every weekend, like Friday night, Saturday night, we're all around each other all the time. And it didn't take too long to fall into this weekend pattern of where we're just at somebody's house, we're playing cards, usually spades. We're going to church together on Sunday mornings, and then this is the South. So we went to church on Sunday morning, we went to church on Sunday night, you went Wednesday night, and then sometimes you did stuff in between then, but we're together a lot, right? And so we'd go to church, we'd eat out together after, because that's the other big Southern thing is you don't just go, you go and eat, all right? So you went to church, you ate lunch, you went to church, you ate dinner, you went on Friday night, you went and played cards, and you went and ate somewhere else. It was just a lot of eating. Thankfully, I was 18 and 19, and so I just processed it really quick. I didn't gain any weight. It was amazing. 20 years later, I cannot do that, but I did it then. And Jen and I weren't together as a couple at the time, but we got introduced to each other then. But we were group dating in a sense, and we got to get to know each other by being around a bunch of other people. Now, how many of you know that dating can be awkward, right? Anybody been there? Dating can be kind of weird, right? If you hadn't done it for a while, maybe you have to go back and think about that. But maybe if you have, it can be really weird, right? Everybody know that? Dating can be awkward, yes? Or just making sure I'm not on the own here, right? It's a bit like a job interview. We talked about this before, right? You're going on an interview, you don't know what to wear, right? You're not sure what to say. And then maybe the most difficult part would be like, how do you end it, right? How do you wrap it up? Do you do the, like, you might not know what this is, but there's such a thing as a Christian side hug, right? Where you just kind of go beside somebody and just do one of these half hug things, right? Do you kiss them on the cheek to end the date, right? Do you go for it and go full tonsil hockey on the first date, right? Don't do that. Don't do that part on first date, right? So it's a little bit awkward. How do you end it? How do you even really get going? Do you have that weird time in between where you go and you eat a meal and then you got something stuck in your teeth and they don't want to tell you you got something stuck in your teeth, but you know you do, and then you go to the bathroom and you're like, oh my goodness, I had broccoli stuck in my teeth the whole time, right? It's just really weird, right? Mine and Jen's, although we had, again, we've been together, we kind of group dated, although we weren't officially together. We'd known each other a while, about a year and a half, but mine and Jen's official first date had a big awkward moment. We were going to the movies together, right? Nice and easy first date. Movies, really easy to do, right? So we were going together, but we're meeting the same group of friends we've been hanging out with for the past year and a half, all right? So they didn't know we were going as a couple, though, right? They just assumed, oh, Jason and Jen, they're going, and they're just going to meet us at the movies and whatever, right? They didn't have any clue. So we show up, and most of them are already there, and we get to our seats. We're going to pick out our seats in one of the rows there, and one of our mutual guy friends, he's a really good friend of mine, didn't know we're on this date, and so he shows up about the same time we do. He walks in the theater with us, and he's picking up seats with us, and he winds up sitting in between me and Jen, right? Because he doesn't know any better. He doesn't know we're on a date, right? Now, I don't know if you've ever tried to slide your arm around somebody else to get to somebody else before. Man, that could be a bit awkward, right? So I'm like, this guy's one of my good friends in between. I'm like, but I really kind of want to show affection to this person I'm on a date with. So I'm like kind of doing this whole really stretch Armstrong thing, trying to get it over there, right? It's really awkward, really awkward. It was pretty crazy. Dating can be weird. Dating can be awkward, but it's the price you pay to really get to know somebody. So we're going to look at a date that Boaz and Ruth went on. We kind of left it there last week, actually, when we talked about them sitting down at a meal together. So we're going to go back to that, and we're going to follow up a little bit with that and find some really practical tips to do it well and not just do it weird, all right? So we're all looking for someone, but we talked about we need to do it differently. And let me drop a truth bomb in here for you. And this might, if you're married and you're like, I know all this stuff, whatever. You know somebody in your life that's struggling. Maybe it's your kid. Maybe it's a cousin. Maybe it's someone you know that's related to you. Or maybe it's just a friend at work. Somebody's struggling with dating, I guarantee it. Here's a truth bomb for you. Instead of looking just for what you want to get for someone, instead of looking for what you want to get from someone, I suggest that you look at what you want to give someone. And why you want to do that is this. You don't just attract what you want, you tend to attract what you are. Let that sink in. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. Now, we're going to see that play out here in the book of Ruth. And we're going to start by identifying 4 signs that you should be looking for when you're going out, or if you have to give this advice to somebody in your life, there's some things you should be looking for when you're dating. So Boaz is checking Ruth out, right? They're going and they're having this date, and they're sitting down, they're sharing this meal together, they're having a great time, and we're going to see 4 things happen in this time. First is he's actually seeking her character. Talk about that in a second. Next, we're going to see that they're exploring connection together. Then we're going to see that they're showing consideration to each other. And then they're going to receive confirmation that they're on the right track. Now, if you remember last week, we said that Boaz was a man of standing, right? He was a man of standing, which makes sure that he knew he was going to take care of Ruth the best way he could. So he gets some information on her. He gets the 411, right? And he invites her to stay for dinner with the work crew. And his favor takes her by surprise. Remember we said this last week, that he invites her over for dinner that night amongst everybody else. And she's like, why are you showing me favor? I'm an immigrant. I don't really belong here. I just come in here just to get a few extra sheaves to just be able to survive. And you're showing me all this special treatment, though I don't deserve it, right? You can almost see in that moment that she's a little bit insecure. And what I love about this text is there's no mention of her physical appearance, right? Boaz isn't focusing on what's on the outside, but what's on the inside. He's seeking her character. So she says, why are you showing me special favor? I don't deserve this. Ruth 2:11 says, Boaz answers her with this. He says, all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me, and how you left your father and your mother and your native land and came to a people that you didn't even know before. So what's he saying here, right? He's saying, I heard you stop worshiping that false god Chemosh that Moabites do worship. You left Moab, you came to Israel, you came to Bethlehem, you turned and tried and are following the one true God. You're worshiping him. You were loyal to your mother-in-law when the other daughter-in-law left. You're not a victim, meaning that you're coming and you're working. You're not asking for a handout. You're not seeking someone to take care of you. You're leaning in and doing what you can to take care of yourself. You haven't sold your body when you could in your situation as a widow. You didn't do any of that. You have godly character. That's what he was seeing in Ruth. He wasn't looking at how pretty she was or what she could give him. He saw in her, godly character. Now, let's do some self-evaluation this morning. Are you a person of godly character? And what does that mean, right? I think it means of quite a few things. One, are you seeking to know God in his word? Not just know God, but seeking to know more about him through his word. Are you studying it and letting him change you through it? Are you a person that doesn't just go to church or watch online, but actually serving and being a part of the church? Do you tell the truth in your conversations? Do you tell people exactly what you think in love, but with integrity? Do you stick to your word? In other words, do you look more like Jesus and behave more like him than you did the week before? Are you being conformed to the image of Christ, right? Now, it doesn't mean you're perfect. I'm not perfect. Nobody here is perfect, right? But you're being perfected, and you're being changed by the presence of God who's active in your daily life, and you're seeking him daily. Are you a person of godly character? That's what he saw in Ruth. Now, if you want a godly marriage, you want to have godly character, and you want to seek out that godly character. So if you're dating and it's complicated and you meet somebody, I'd say pay very close attention, because you should be looking for a few things. One, you should be looking at their friends, right? Now, let's be really practical and really, really honest about this. What are their friends like? When you meet somebody, who they hang around tells you a lot about who they are. What are their friends like? Are the majority of their friends pursuing Jesus? Because you tend to be like those you run with, right? How do they treat their family? How does he talk to his mom? How do they treat the person at a restaurant, the waiter or waitress? Are they arrogant? Are they entitled? Do they have a good work ethic? Do they take initiative? In other words, if they're jerks to everyone else, if they have no quality friends, if they're critical of everyone else, and they're always a victim, and maybe they even push you sexually and they distract you from God, they are not signs of godly character in that relationship. It's just not. And what I would say to some of you right now is that if you're with someone and you're seeing things that are not pleasing to God, someone said this: when a person shows you who they are, believe them. Believe them. The way people are living is a reflection of what they believe. That's one thing you'll see throughout the entire Bible, and also you see throughout everyone's life you absolutely meet. What you believe determines how you're going to behave. Absolutely does. So if you're dating someone and they're not helping you get closer to Jesus, and let's say they're taking you away from him, you might want to get out of Moab and come back to Bethlehem like we talked about in week 1. So Boaz, he's a man of character. He's standing on business, right? He notices Ruth's character. And the next thing we see is that he's actually exploring to see if there's a connection, right? Boaz doesn't just slide up her DMs and say, hey, stop that. Want to come Netflix and chill, right? Let's just come over to the house, hang out, right? We don't see that. What he actually does is he invites her on a public date. He says, do you want to have a meal with me? Do you want to share some time with me? And it's not even a private meal. Right? They go to a place where everybody's feeling comfortable. They get to know each other. It's out in the open. It's public. And he's trying to get to know her and see if she's a right fit, if she's a good fit. Who is she really? He knows about her, but he's got to know her, right? And notice she doesn't move too fast either. Not here. She doesn't say, hey, thanks for the meal. By the way, do you want kids? Right? How many kids do you want if you want them, right? And what do you want to name them? And all these questions, right? They're not going too fast, right? He's not going fast. She's not going too fast. They're not making out. They're not fooling around on the first date. They're not playing Naked Twister. Some of you are like, Naked Twister? Naked Twister's a thing? Right? All right. Don't do Naked Twister unless you're married, all right? You can do Naked Twister if you're married, but even then, depending on how old you are, you might want to turn a light off, all right? Just to make sure, if you're going to do that. You might not like how it turns out. Anyway, all right. So they're not fooling around. They're just getting to know each other. Just hanging out. They're just soaking up time together, trying to seek each other's character, trying to seek a connection, right? They're making that connection. And ladies, what you want is you want a man who's going to initiate, one who's going to put out some doggone effort. And guys, you got to want to put out some effort. Right? Don't wait on the lady to try to force things on you, right? Don't get pushy, but put in some effort. All right? And not just, you want somebody who's going to put on some effort to pursue you, ladies, but not your body, all right? Don't get this twisted, all right? Don't get a guy who's just trying to push you to get to know you sexually, all right? That's not what we're talking about. Someone who's going to show an interest to you, who's going to pursue you. You see, Boaz initiates the date, right? He's showing interest. He explores connection. He's taking time out of his day. He's making her a priority in his day to get to know her and not just her body. He's not even seeking that. And also we see he makes consideration for her. We see this in verses 15 and 16. When she rose to glean, Boaz instructed his young men, saying, let her glean even among the sheaves, and don't reproach her. And also, hey, put some out from the bundles for her, and leave it for her to glean, and don't rebuke her if she takes them. Just start laying it out, right? Now, we talked about this last week, but according to Levitical law, right, that they would have to leave behind whatever fell on the ground. So as they're harvesting, as they're reaping all the wheat or the barley, whatever was left, a widow or someone would come behind who's an outcast or vulnerable in the community, someone who's poor, and they could come along, they could glean, they could take it. But what he's doing here is he's giving her dignity. He's letting her work, right? But he's blessing her above and beyond that, right? He's not giving her a handout, but he's giving her extra. A lot extra, actually. He's going out of his way to bless her, right? Because in 17, it says this, she gleaned in the field until evening, and then when she beat out what she had gleaned, there was about an ephah of barley. Now what's an ephah? We don't measure things like they did, right? What's an ephah? Let me tell you, In the Hebrew, that means a lot of barley. That's what it means. She got a lot of barley. And ephah was 2 weeks' wages. 2 weeks in one day. 2 weeks in one day. He was like Easter egg hunt. He said, hey guys, we got this extra barley, just throw it out there. Just leave so much extra that she's going to be able to pick it up because she's going to earn it, right? I want to protect her dignity, but she's going to get so much that she's going to be blessed beyond measure with how much we're giving her today, with more than she ever expected. When you're dating, I want to encourage you not to settle, all right? Don't settle for whoever's there. Seek someone who's going to put out some effort. All right, we don't want someone who just meets our expectations but exceeds them from time to time. That's what Boaz was doing with Ruth. He was exceeding her expectations. He was blessing her beyond measure. So, hey, guys, right, you want to go out on a date? Clean your dang car, right? Clean your car, please, if you have a car. Hopefully you have a car, all right? Clean it. Take the whopper wrapper out of your seat. She doesn't wear it whenever she gets out and is walking down to wherever you're going, right? Ladies, you want to have someone who's going to give you a thoughtful gift. It doesn't have to be expensive. It could be a flower from the side of the road they find, just something they put some thought into when they're taking you out, right? And look for someone who's going to take you to a restaurant that doesn't have a drive-through in it, all right? We talked about that last week a little bit too. Someone who's going to sit down, get to know you, who walks you to the door, who protects your heart, who protects your purity, who honors and values you. And guys, here's the thing. If you want a Ruth, be a Boaz. We talked about this last week, right? Be a giver. Be generous. Put some effort into it because you don't attract what you want. You attract who you are. So he's seeking character, they're looking for connection, there's consideration. Then what I like is they're actually receiving confirmation because here's a follow-up to this. Ruth goes home for the day. She goes back, she goes home to her mother-in-law Naomi, and she says, hey, look what I got. And her mother-in-law says this in verse 19. Her mother-in-law said to her, where did you glean today? She gets all this barley, right? She brings them all this food. And her mother-in-law's like, where in the world did you work? Where have you worked? Blessed be the man who took notice of you. Blessed be that person who said, man, I'm going to give you abundantly beyond all measure what you need today. Blessed be him, right? Whoever that guy is, I like him. Whoever did this, he's a good, honorable, godly man. And what we know about Naomi is that she loved Ruth, right? You saw it in chapter 1. You can go back and reread that she actually prayed for her to have a godly husband. She was seeking her best for her. And she confirms this. Whenever she comes back with all the ephah for barley, she's like, who is this guy? This is a good man, right? This is a really good man. So she's looking to seek the best for her. And that's always a good sign, I think, whenever the people you love the most like those you like. All right, here's a good truth, all right? If you come and you're dating somebody or you know somebody in your life, hey, maybe on the other end of this and somebody in your life is dating and they come to you and I hope they seek your advice, all right? I hope they do. I hope they love and trust you enough to come and seek your advice, right? Because if they do and you like them, that's a good thing, all right? But if you don't, that's not a good thing. They hopefully are going to pay attention, right? Because when people you trust the most and love you the most confirm that, that's a really good thing. That's a really good thing. So identify people in your life that love you and seek their opinion on who you're seeing. It could be a prayer partner, could be here at church, whatever. Just something to be able to give somebody else an opportunity to say yes or no to that relationship. Not to make the final decision, but to give you some insight to be able to know if you're on the right track or not. And I want to encourage you to listen to it too, because what's going to happen is you're going to say, oh, but I love him, or, but he's got so much potential, but oh man, you just don't know her like I know her, right? And you're going to say all these things, and I'm going to say, be careful. Because if someone else you know and love and trust doesn't respect that person or doesn't trust that other person or thinks there's a warning sign in there, you need to listen. You need to listen. And don't just go along because it feels good to go along. Pay attention to that. So character, connection, consideration, confirmation. And prayerfully that's all working out in your life. It's all working out in Ruth and Boaz's story here. Let's see how it continued. So we look at their first date. I'm going to read into this a little bit, but it looks like they had a pretty good time, right? They looks like they connected. They talked for a little while. He gives her more than she needs. The conversation looks good. You know, if I had to modernize it, I'd probably say, sparks are flying. He made her laugh, right? She made him feel special, right? There was no awkward silence. They started finishing each other's sentences. There was butterflies in the air, right? They were vibing. It was good. It was just good space, right? And then after this great first date, what happens? Nothing. Nothing happens. Boaz ghosts her. No follow-up call, no courtesy text, no did you make it home okay? He didn't even follow her on Instagram, right? There's no follow-up with her, right? And so she's confused. She's confused. She's like, man, what is going on? 7 weeks of harvest. 7 weeks of harvest go by between that first date and this time we're following up with. 7 weeks go by. Harvest is almost over. And now she's scratching her head going, man, maybe I thought there was something there, but there really wasn't anything there. You know, I don't know. Maybe I came on too strong. Maybe I was too forward or something. I don't know. I didn't shower. I was working in the field all day. Maybe I gave him the ick. I don't know, right? I should have taken a shower. Maybe I just kind of blew it. Maybe I just blew it. I don't know. What did I do wrong? So her mother-in-law, Naomi, just gave her that confirmation at the end of the first date. She says, this man is awesome, right? 7 weeks later, like nothing's happening, right? Nothing's happening. So Naomi, very opinionated, not always wise. We're going to see why in a second. She steps into this conversation. She says, Ruth, hey, it's time to DTR. It's time to define the relationship, right? And who knows what I'm talking about? You ever been there? You remember way back when you were dating for some of y'all? That was a long, long time ago, right? And you were dating and you're like, oh, now, are we really official? Or are we just kind of hanging out? Or what are we doing here? What's going on, right? What's the level of commitment in this relationship? Are we just friends, more than friends, casually dating exclusively? I don't know. And now in our day and age, what's even more important? Like, are we going to broadcast it on social media or not, right? What are we doing? What's the public policy here? So Naomi, her mother-in-law, in chapter 3, verse 1, says to her, my daughter, should I not seek rest for you that it may go well with you? In other words, we got to find you a man. We got to get you married off and get you in a home of your own. You don't need to be here with me. I'm a crotchety old woman. You need to have someone of your own and have a family of your own, right? Verse 2 says, is not Boaz, that man that took so good care of you 7 weeks ago, is he not our relative with whose young woman you were? See, he's winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. He's winnowing barley at the threshing floor. Now, that sentence probably doesn't mean a single thing to you because I don't know any of us who've winnowed barley. Anybody winnowed barley lately? I don't think anybody's winnowed barley lately, all right? So what in the world does it mean to winnow barley on the threshing floor? Let me show you a photo. Carrie's going to throw it up here of a threshing floor. All right, we got it up? Yeah. All right, so this would be a place after the harvest is done where you go and you take the harvest and all that you had to this platform in a field, right? And then you would take everything there and you take pitchforks usually and you would shovel it up and you throw it up in the air, right? And it's been out in the open, right? Way out in the open. So you throw it up in the air and the wind would come through and it'd separate the wheat from the chaff, right? It'd separate the good stuff that you could actually use from the useless stuff that's going to be burned up later, right? Just a really good way of just getting out of the good stuff, right? So essentially they were determining the profit, right? And what they're going to do at the end of harvest is they're harvesting and they're throwing up and they're winnowing, they're getting the profits. They're having a payday party. They're saying, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're all going to get together. We're going to get to the threshing floor. We're going to get all the good stuff and we're going to know you got this much barley. This means we're going to get paid this much money. So we're going to have a big party as a cap off the harvest season. We're going to have a feast. We're going to be eating. We're going to be drinking. Everybody's going to get paid. It's going to be awesome. We're going to have a great time doing that, right? So Naomi, she starts to strategize a little bit. And she thinks, okay, Ruth, here's the deal. Boaz is going to be at the threshing floor. He's going to be in a good mood because he's getting paid and he's eating and he's drinking, all right? So here's what we're going to do. Verse 3, she says, wash therefore. We're going to talk about that in a second. Wash therefore and anoint yourself and put on your cloak and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he's finished eating and drinking. First of all, wash. All right, wash. All right, this is a very good place to start, by the way. You know, if you want to have any kind of relationship whatsoever, just go ahead and write that down. Take a bath, right? Take a bath. Please take a shower, do something with some water and some soap. Don't just spray Axe body spray all over you. Don't perfume yourself. Don't do any of that. Actually clean your body off, right? Then when you do that, put on some perfume, right? Put on some cologne, man, whatever you got to do. Dress yourself in your best stuff. Don't be going out there half-dressed like, oh, I can be sloppy because who cares? She doesn't love me the way I am. It doesn't matter. No, don't play that game, right? Dress up in your best stuff. Now, what's Naomi thinking? Naomi's thinking, that last time, it's been 7 weeks. 7 weeks, Ruth. And when you saw him last time, you were a hot mess, right? You were not looking good. You were a total mess. You had dirt in your fingernails. Your hair was all ratty. I mean, and what I want you to do is I want you to show him some of your glow up. Get your best fit on, right? Do something to show that you got some class to you. Put some perfume on. Be attractive, right? And then what you're going to do, once you're all decked out, is you're going to go down that threshing floor. But don't let him know you're there first, all right? Just stay back. Stay on the periphery, just kind of watch what's going on. Wait until he's finished eating and drinking, all right? Wait until he's finished eating and drinking. Let him get his chicken wings in. Let him get his belly full, because we all know, guys, we're all much happier after we've eaten, right? Right? So there's some strategy behind Naomi's thinking here, right? What I want you to do is get you dressed up, wait until he's had a few drinks, had a full belly, and then here's what I want you to do. When he lies down, observe the place where he lies, then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he'll tell you what to do. Hold up. Hold up for just a second here. Right? I want to tell you point blank, I would never give my daughter this advice, all right? Just so we know. Go to the party, wait for him to catch a buzz, and when he's in bed, sneak in and whisper to him, tell me what you want me to do. No, that's not happening. I'm not giving my daughter this advice ever, right? So what in the world is she doing? Sneak in and wait for this man to tell you what? No, right? Now, there's a few theories about what's happening here. The most obvious and probably most likely is that Naomi is trying to make sure that there is no confusion about what Ruth is looking for, right? She wants Ruth to be as forward as possible for women in her day without going too far over the line. She's not sleeping with Boaz, right? But she's pushing it pretty close to the limit, right? To make it as plain as possible for Boaz to know that she's interested in him and wants to marry him. Not just like, oh, can we take this to the next step? No, like let's get this all the way sealed, right? I want to get this done. And I'll go ahead and say this for the benefit of the ladies, is that some men need a little encouragement. Some of them need a lot of encouragement, right? And the reason, I'll let you in a little secret here. The secret is that most men, most of us, me included sometimes, can be a little bit insecure. And I know some of you would say, that's no secret, all right? But let's just pretend that it is because it makes me feel better. But some of us are a little insecure and we need a little bit of encouragement along the way, all right? We just do. We need a little bit of a signal. A little bit of encouragement. So Ruth goes, she lies down on his feet. She's waiting by this pallet by the grain out in the open here. And I want to be very, very clear. This is descriptive, not prescriptive, okay? This is the Bible, which I appreciate because it doesn't leave out the weird, awkward, crazy stuff. But that doesn't mean that every weird, awkward, crazy thing is to be prescribed to your life, all right? Sometimes it's just describing what happened and not encouraging you to follow up on that, all right? But just so you know it's there. I appreciate it because it's real life, but I wouldn't encourage you to do this like I wouldn't encourage my daughter to do this, right? When Jen and I were dating, we didn't get everything right. I will clarify that. We made some decisions that I would probably warn my children against. We messed some things up. But there's an encouraging truth in this story, right? In Ruth's story here, and I think in our lives in general, is that even if you don't get it right, God can still make it right, all right? Even if you don't do everything by the book all the time, God's still working. So if you're in a relationship right now, right, and you're all jacked up, and you just, man, I don't know if we can make this work, you serve a God who is a redemptive God. He is a forgiving God. He's a gracious God, and he works in all things. And he takes the things that we break and we mess up and we muddle up and we don't do well with, and he can actually make them better than they were before. Now, I don't tell you that to give you permission to be dumb, all right? I don't tell you that to make you say, oh man, great, I made all these bad decisions and God's just going to make it all better. That's not what I'm saying. But I will encourage you that God is still good and he is still working even when we've messed some things up. We're like Ruth, we turn back to Bethlehem, we turn back to him, we commit ourselves to him in a relationship, one-on-one with him and with a couple. He's going to start working things out for your good, even no matter how bad it was before. Ruth 3, 7 through 9, though, let's see how it works out. When Boaz had eaten and drunk and his heart was merry, right? We talked about that. He drank a little, he got some food, everything's going great, it's a great day, it's payday, right? And he goes to lie down at the end of a heap of grain. Then she came softly, real quiet, she sneaks in. She uncovered his feet and lay down. And at midnight, so I don't know how long he's been sleeping, because they wouldn't have been up too long past the sun went down. They're not out there just, going all night or anything. They're going to go to bed when the sun goes down. At midnight, the man was startled, right? And turned over, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. And he said, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" Right? And she said, "Oh, I'm Ruth. It's just Ruth." Right? You probably don't remember me. I looked really bad last time, but I'm dressed up now. So this is how I really look. This is my good side, all right? Just so you know. But I'm your servant. Hey, spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer. Redeemer. There's a word here that's really important. You go throughout a lot of the Bible, it ties back in so many different ways. A kinsman redeemer. A kinsman redeemer in those days is a relative who had the responsibility and privilege to provide for a family member in time of need. So let me give you a scenario, which is what's happening here. Well, what happened is if there was a widow and her husband, would have died, he probably would have had a brother, because they had big families then. He probably would have had a brother. That brother would have the spiritual responsibility and responsibility in the community by the law to provide for her and protect that widow by marrying her. All right? So if he was unmarried, there's a brother that's unmarried, and his brother dies for whatever reason, that widow's there, his job is to redeem her, is to take her as his own, right? That was the guardian or the kinsman redeemer. So who's Boaz? He's a potential kinsman redeemer, but it's very important here. He's a distant one. He's not anywhere near the closest, because the goal in a kinsman redeemer relationship is to be like your brother, right next to each other. It's not supposed to be a distant cousin or second and third. It's supposed to be really close, right? And so he's not anywhere closest to the closest one. He didn't have the first legal right or obligation to provide for her, but she's saying, "Hey, will you cover me? Will you protect me?" Many scholars would say she was saying, would you be my spiritual covering? Will you be my legal covering? Would you be my protector, my redeemer? Some would say she's proposing. I don't think she is, but she's coming as pretty doggone close to proposing as you can without actually doing it, right? She's encouraging him to propose, is essentially what she's doing. So Ruth has hinted, or more than hinted, that she's available, that she's declaring her love for him, and Boaz finally gets it through his thick man skull that, hey, this girl's available. She actually wants me, right? And I wasn't just this one weird date thing, and I didn't know how to follow up, and now she's giving me the cues, right? She's giving me the signal, and I'm going to hit full send. We're going to go. Let's make this thing happen, right? So what do? Unfortunately, it can't just happen right now, right? It can't be immediate. Ruth chapter 3, verses 12 and 13. He says, "Now it's true that I am a redeemer, yet there is a redeemer nearer than I. So remain tonight, and in the morning, if he'll redeem you, good, let him do it. But if he's not willing to redeem you, then as the Lord lives, I will redeem you." Just lie down until morning. We'll take care of this, right? Now, we're going to see how he overcomes this obstacle next week, all right? That's going to be a key part. But for now, let's just summarize where we got so far. There's some big lessons here. One, it's often wise to put yourself in the right place to increase your odds of meeting the right person. In other words, if you're a follower of Jesus and you want to meet someone who's a follower of Jesus, it's probably better to go to church than to the party that your friends are having. Probably. So in other words, be at places where godly people will be to increase your odds of meeting a godly person. That seems like it should make sense, but I think I want to clarify that here. Two, don't overlook those who are right in front of you. I think oftentimes there's someone right in front of you that God may do something special with if you're ready to open your eyes and see who they are. We see that in Ruth and Boaz's case. Another principle is sometimes you have to go after what you want. We saw that in Ruth too. 3 here, even if you've messed up the first 2, God can still make it right. We just talked about this, right? For some of you, this is God's word for you today. Even in your marriage right now, there's some things that are not as they should be. And maybe you built it on a foundation that wasn't as strong as it could have been. And even if you didn't do it all right, God is a redemptive God. He's a forgiving God, and He's gracious. He's working in all things to bring together for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. He can still make things right in your relationship right now. Finally, if you want a marriage that honors God in the future, live a life that honors God today. Don't wait until later, right? Don't say, hey, yeah, once we're married, or when we have kids, or whenever I got a good enough job, or when I have more time on my hands, then I'm going to serve Jesus. No, be faithful to Him today. And do that because he's been faithful to you first. We talked last week about how we're like Ruth. Boaz didn't have to redeem her. She could have done all that. She could have dressed herself up and been the prettiest girl in all of Bethlehem. She could have snuck right on in that night, and she could have, just done every single thing in her power to convince him to make it happen. He still had he didn't have the right. He didn't have to. She didn't deserve to be redeemed. That's important. Remember, she was a foreigner. She was a widow of an even distant relative. He wasn't obligated, but he was determined to because he loved her. He was determined to, not because he had to, but because he loved her. In the same way, Jesus wasn't obligated to give his life for you. Yet because of his love for you, he chose to be stripped of the glory of heaven and became the Lamb of God, who shed his blood and with his slaying gave us the forgiveness of sins. And after he gave his life, he didn't stay dead, but God raised him from the dead so that anyone, and this includes you, and this includes me, it doesn't matter what you've done, that anyone who calls on him will be saved. Anyone who comes is redeemed. Anyone who comes is bought with a price for new life to escape certain death. Jesus, your kinsman redeemer, just as Boaz was Ruth's kinsman redeemer, opens the door for you today. His heart is for you. He didn't have to redeem you, but he loved you enough to step out of heaven to redeem you. So this morning, it's time to DTR. It's time to define the relationship. Who is Jesus to you? Like really, really. Not like, I don't know, I kind of know, whatever. Now, who is he, right? Is he just some cool historical figure, right? Is he some guy that you really like to read about? Maybe you got a casual commitment to. Maybe it's like, hey, I come to church when I can, when the weather's not too good or the weather's not too bad, when the game's not on, whatever. Or is he your Lord? Is he your Savior? Is he your Redeemer? Is he your King? And my fear, and I don't know how else to say this, but my fear is that there are many of you who are just like me, so the majority of my life. I would go to church, I'd do things, but I wasn't in a relationship. He wasn't my Lord. He was just a guy that I talked about, that I hung around, that I kind of did things, somewhat on the periphery with. And I'm afraid that some of you are in that same position where we're missing him by about this much, about 18 inches. You know about him in your head, but you don't know him in your heart. Because here's the thing, Jesus didn't come to make you religious. He came to have a relationship with you. He didn't come just to get you to join church. He came to set you free. He didn't come to make you a follower of a bunch of different rules. He came to give you life and life to the fullest. It's time to DTR. Where are you at with Jesus? Because you can have so many different relationships. You could date so many people. You could be in a really good, healthy, long-term marriage. And all those can be good things. But if you don't have a good relationship with Jesus, you're missing out on the most transformational piece of your life. Total, top to bottom, inside out, life-changing relationship. Today, he has called you, said, I have redeemed you. I have bought you back. We're all foreigners. We're all widows in a sense. We're left out of heaven. The things we've done, the choices we've made, the sins we've committed, we've all done this. I'm there. The only hope, the only way forward is for a Redeemer to buy us back, to bring us back into the family. And the only one who can do that is Jesus. There is nothing or no one else. Only him can bring you back to the Father. And he loves you so much that he came and lived a perfect life that we can never live. He died a death that we deserve. He was raised on the third day, proving that he conquered death in a way that no one else has or ever will. And he's offering that life to you now, full and abundant, forever and all time. Not here. Here. It's time to define the relationship. For believers, Maybe you're dating now. Maybe you're thinking about it. Are you willing to date differently to get different results? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Maybe you're in a relationship, though. Maybe you're married. Maybe not. Maybe you're hanging out. You've put yourself in compromising situations to please somebody in that relationship, and it's not a thing that honors God or honors one another. Maybe your marriage is hurting today a little bit, whether you're in person or online, right? Maybe it's hurting. Maybe the things you've done in the past. The thing is, God is still in the redemption business in our lives. Not just individuals, but couples, families, generations. That's what we talk about all the time here at Faith. The only way we're going to see pownal change, the only way we see any change happen, is through the power of a redemptive God. He can change things like no one else can. But we have to decide to continue to come to him and allow him to work in us and individuals and his couples and families. Here's the thing, though. He knows where you're at. He knows the situation you're in better than I ever could. He cares enough to be able to sit with you through the good times and the bad. And he's telling you, I can turn it around. Just turn it over to me. This morning, let's pray as we focus in on these things. Now, if you're a seeker, first, we're talking about defining the relationship. If you're somebody who doesn't know where they're standing with Christ, you're like, I don't know. I know who he is, but I don't have a relationship with him like you're talking about. I don't look any more like him this week than I did last week. I don't feel like I'm loving anybody better than I did last week. I don't feel like I'm forgiving anybody differently than I did last week. Today is the day that can change. It doesn't start by you making more effort. It starts by humbling yourself before a God who loved you enough to die for you and is offering forgiveness, love, and mercy and a new way of living to you today. Now, if that's you, and you want to respond to that relationship, you do so by praying. Not to be these words, but words like these. Dear Heavenly Father, dear Jesus, first, I'm sorry. God, there are things I've done. There's relationships I've been in. There's things I've done in those relationships, God, that I regret. There's people I've hurt and that have been hurt by me and that I've been hurt by. But God, today, I want to give that all up. Lord, I'm not seeking revenge. I'm not even seeking justice right now. Lord, I need your mercy. I need your grace over me. I need you. I need you to make me new, to make me whole, to make me right with you. Father, help me to commit my life to you, not my head, not how I think only, but how I live, why my decisions are made, how I behave. Let it flow from who I believe and trust in. And let that thing be you and you alone. Now, if that's you this morning, as we always do each week, I want to continue to encourage you in this. Please find me when we're done. All right? Don't leave here and think, oh, is this something I had to do personally on my own? No, it comes into a greater commitment with a group of people who are seeking to do it together. So find me when we're done. I'll follow up with you. Let's see what the next step is past that for you. For believers, though, and everyone else as we wrap up today, let's pray this. Dear Heavenly Father, God, I thank you, Father, that you are a Redeemer. Lord, that you are a God who sees us in our mess, who sees us when our hair is all messed up, our lives are all messed up, we got dirty fingernails, God, everything is a wreck. Lord, and a lot of the things we're in, God, we've done ourselves. But God, you are a redemptive God. God, you are a God who sees us in that state and does not turn his head away and says that we are not worthy, Lord. But you love us enough to come down, Father, to save us from even ourselves, God, and to make us new, to give us life, to give us the ability to love and forgive in a way we cannot do on our own, that is impossible on our own. But God, you change us in our very heart. Our very being, God, is changed by you, by your Spirit working in and through us, Jesus. So God, today I pray that we recommit our relationship to you, Lord, that we take this time to reflect on, God, how you have taken us from places that we deserve to be in, God, and you've brought us to places that are better than we could ever imagine, God. Lord, we are so grateful to you who redeem us out of those situations, Lord. God, Lord, I pray right now, Father, over relationships that are hurting, over marriages that may be struggling, whether we want to admit it or not, for people who are in situations like dating, Father, or are kind of on the cusp of it or don't know where they're at and are in this weird, awkward stage, God, that you would take and move in these situations, Father, that you would bring healing, Father, to these situations, that you would take and be redemptive in these situations too, to make things better than we ever could imagine, Lord. Help us to do that in humility, coming to you knowing that if we don't come to you first, Lord, Father, this won't happen, not because you can't do it, but God, because we have to come and submit ourselves to you. We have to lay down our pride, our selfishness, God, our self-sufficiency, and say, Lord, I need you today to do this. God, do it today in us. Lord, may this church, may everyone here watching in person and online, praying this prayer together, God, may we be committed, Father, to a relationship with you that changes every relationship that we're in. God, may our relationships look and sound and think more like Jesus. Next week, tomorrow, today, God, any other time, past this point forward, Father, because we've committed ourselves to you first. Let us see that happen, Father, so we can see this generation healed. Our families healed, our lives restored in you and by you alone. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, thank you online. We're going to worship here together in just a minute, but online, thank you for being with us for part 3. Next week, we wrap it up for part 4, relationship goals. Cannot wait to get to the end of that one with you. Thank you so much for being with us this week, and we'll see you guys next Sunday.